When I'm weaving or I'm stitching works together, it's very often repetitive actions that take quite a while, so doing that can become meditative with time. You have to dedicate a certain amount of hours, and then you will need to cut it off and then start something new. Yeah, it's a bit of a commitment, weaving. I used to photograph in a kind of snapshot street photography manner with small cameras, quickly work in a documentary way. And I started struggling by what I was doing because I thought I was just taking stuff from the street that I was not entitled to, and the process was so quick that most of the time I wasn't really understanding what I was doing or who the community was that I was encountering. For a few years my work kind of moved away from photography. At a point my work was becoming quite immaterial, and I, a bit on a whim, inscribed in a weaving class here in Brussels, in a community center. And yeah, I loved it. The hand-woven textile works, where I reproduce repairs from public space, it's an ongoing series that runs since 2015. It's called Materials. The materials refer to the materials used in public space that the repairs are made of. So it could be pieces of tape or pieces of cardboard. And at the same time, it's also for me important to acknowledge the materials used or that I'm using while weaving. Through them, I come to understand how a city is changing and what kind of the maybe larger socio-economical processes are behind certain transformations. At the same time, often these repairs are also individual gestures of trying to keep something together or to fix things or to preserve something instead of buying something new. I guess I'm trying to more and more to transition to fair and unharmful ways of working, although that's very troubled and impossible most of the time, but this is also what I think materials kind of aims to be or to become.
Lukewarm tea rose.
Lukewarm tea rose, a soft drink that we used to drink. But we have chosen for change. Earl Grey with cream, amber and clay, peach and beige. Salt and pepper taste better.
In my practice, I have these two parallel tracks. One is a kind of more solitary practice of weaving in my studio, and the other one is collaborative workshops. I think that interest mostly stems from being born in a country where a lot of things were organized communally. There is this series of workshops called Felt Workshops, and they're actually an outcome of doing a project with a group of women, the community arts center Globa Roma. It's a very easy to pass on, hands-on technique. But the outcome of the actual textile is always different depending on the colors of the wool that's being used, depending on the interactions between the groups of people. The studio backdrop stands became part of the presentation because I have a background in photography, and I thought it was kind of interesting that these can serve almost like backdrops for portraits, but at the same time they also become kind of portraits of a few hours spent working together. In a way, they're almost like these kind of bodily figures in space. I think what's also important when you're doing collaborative work is that there is this kind of shared learning space where you're basically figuring out together how to make something instead of having this kind of master teacher saying what you should do.